Hello and welcome to another great edition, and I say great every episode because every episode is great, of Beyond the Hype with Black Enterprise. I'm your host, Alfred Edmey Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor of Black Enterprise. And as usual, we have another important, critical, fascinating topic with a great guest who's passionate about it. Listen, guys, you know how passionate I am about health and fitness and increasing both the health span and lifespan of Black people in particular. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's of critical importance to the health of Black women, but I am making the case, and I think my guest will make the case, about why this may be seen as a women's health issue. It is a issue of health equity for all people, and that men should care as well. My guest today is passionate about eradicating disparities in healthcare. He is a fascinating study, in my opinion, of how best to represent what you do on social media. Follow him on Instagram. You'll learn more about that. But more importantly, he is on the front lines of the war on fibroids. So listen, welcome to the show, my guest, Dr. Pierre Johnson, the fibroid slayer. Welcome to the show, Dr. Pierre.
Man, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you all for having me, man.
Now,
really
again, my
good to be here.
Know that Chicago's my favorite city. You're a Chicagoan. That's how I first got to know you as one of the prominent people in Chicago that I think everybody should know. But let's start with how you became, and I know there's a book out, The Pulse of Perseverance, that you and two other doctors kind of tell your story. But tell me about your journey to become a doctor and then become a practitioner in this particular area of health.
Awesome. So I keep a long story short, but it's pretty interesting. Like my steps have been ordered since I was a kid. When I was 5-6 years old, my aunt challenged me to come up with a plan B because I'm from Chicago. I was really into sports. What you want to do as when you get older. As a kid, it was I want to play basketball. I want to play baseball. Those are my two sports. Watching Michael Jordan and watching just Chicago sports, that fascinated me as a kid. But she pressed me for weeks to give her something alternative to professional sports. And 3 weeks later, I came up with, hey, I want to be a doctor. And the reason that I wanted to do that, it wasn't because of anybody in my family. I was having, just a lot of family issues, abuse and drugs and things. So it was a lot of negativity. But the positive thing that I saw, the only positive thing that I saw was the Cosby Show. And the Cosby Show really just impressionated on my mind that there was a Black professional man that was doing well and doing good in his community, being a family man. He just so happened to be an OBGYN. So I just said, hey, I want to be a doctor and I want to be an OBGYN. And that was just the seed that planted in my young mind at that time. And as once you plant a seed, the seed just starts to grow. So I realized that I just thought childbirth was the most fascinating thing in the world. Like I didn't understand as a kid how a life will form inside of a human and then it would just come out, months later. That just was fascinating to me. And fast forward to when I was 9 years old, my mom was pregnant with my brother, my first brother. And that whole process was just extreme. It was just like eye-opening to me. And at the time, her OBGYN was a Black man. And he, just served as a mentor to me. He listened to my questions. He engaged me in conversation. And that really, really, really snowballed my desire to do what I'm doing today. And so fast forward to high school, my freshman year in high school, I had a teacher that just came in with a horrible haircut. And I told him that, hey, I could do better than that. I don't even cut hair. And I was really, into barbering and cutting hair. He brought a pair of Walls clippers the next day, told me to fix it. I did it, and he gave me those clippers. So I didn't realize that at that point, that really kind of transcended my future, just something that simple, because at that point I just went OCD with learning how to cut hair. I just cut everybody's hair. Before you look up, by the end of high school, like I was just the hood barber for everybody. And it put me through college. Like that's how I paid a lot of my way through college was cutting hair. And just after college, going into, trying to get into medical school. It was a rough road trying to get in. I was actually a barber in a shop. It's on the south side of Chicago called Tom Style World. And that's where I learned from being just a guy to cut hair to an actual barber, learning how to use a straight razor, learning how to use, a lot of the barbering techniques. And that was the foundation of where I'm at right now. I mean, you're not going to find many surgeons that are actually barbers. And I really understood the dexterity of my hands and the movements and the fine nuances that I was really, really good with my hands. And so my thought process at that point was saying, hey, not only do I want to deliver babies, that's cool, but I can really take this to a surgical level that's never been seen. And so in medical school, fast forward, I was reading about, you know, the father of gynecology, J. Marion Sims, and and that this is in medical textbooks right now. And as I started to learn like the racism that plays out in medicine, and really started to dig deep into like how we really got all of these surgeries from, the OBGYN world, it was literally him holding down slave women, a group of white men holding down slave women and performing these experimental guinea pig surgeries on slave women and really brutalizing these women over decades. And that's how we have all of the different surgeries as it pertains to women's health now. And for me, I took that really personal. And as a person that is just really deep rooted and unapologetically Black in this society, and really changing the environment that we live in and the culture we live in, and being, unintentional about making things better for us, I just dedicated my life to figuring out how to not only pay tribute to, our ancestors and these Black women that have sacrificed their lives for where we are now, but the women that are here, the descendants of those women, to actually be the ones that actually benefit from, the sacrifices from them, instead of being the continued guinea pigs in 2024, 2023. Like now, how I can bring my talents to these women and change the times. And so I figured out, the only other thing I'll add is that, I wanted to be an OBGYN, but something very important happened to me after medical school. I didn't get into OBGYN residency. So after you go into medical school, you go into your residency. I didn't get in initially, but it was really all God's plan because I basically scrambled into a general surgery internship. And in that year, I learned so much, and I really, really learned how to use my natural skills and dexterity and start to hone these skills that I then capitalized on through 4 years of training with OBGYN to really, really focus, my skills, and, just evolved into what I am today.
Listen, now I'm talking to my guests. I always break the third wall all the time on my show. I told you this dude was the real deal. I told you, so now you hear it. No, because you hit on a couple of powerful points. First, I want to give props to the Black doctors that delivered a couple of my children, Dr. Millicent Comrie and Dr. Dennis Blanchette out of Brooklyn, who to this, I remember their names to this day. It wasn't just that they were Black, but it was the way they handled the mother of my children, the way they handled me. Again, you want all doctors, regardless of race, to have that sensitivity to Black people. So I always say, don't let the non-Black doctors off the hook. But it just means something, and you're talking about being inspired by Dr. Cliff Huxtable, OBGYN, because for most Americans, certainly most Black Americans, that was the first representation of anybody. Forget about the specialty, a Black surgeon, a Black, doctor. Like you said, it was an eye-opening experience, and I've heard that from so many people who are either doctors or lawyers today, because they saw the Huxtable family and it was like, oh, this is a real thing, and it's visible, and I can do it. But the other thing I wanted to hit on is, as you talk about your evolution, and I got a lot of friends. I'm an alumni of Rutgers University. I got a lot of really good friends, brothers who paid their way through college or grad school because they could barber, whether they did it in a shop or whether they did it in their dorm room. They were like, oh, I can cut, and I can use this to make some money. But a
Thanks.
lot of people don't know, you may know, that the history of barbering and surgery actually is common. That the
Darker.
barber shop
Right.
was where you got your tooth pulled, and so when you
Right.
see that red and white and blue swirly thing outside of many traditional barber shops, that's because it was the barbering was a medical as much as it was a
The fir-
grooming profession.
yeah, the first surgeons were actually barbers. So
Yeah,
that is a
yeah.
historical fact, absolutely. And so that actually got and the way I learned that was because when I actually interviewed for OBGYN the first time, the chairman at that point, he had quizzed me and questioned me on about it, and I really didn't know the history about it. And once I didn't get in, I did some real research and digging on it. And so when I came back in the next time, we had a whole conversation about it. Like, and it just really solidified what I was doing. It really said, this is what you're destined to do. This is why
Mm.
nothing happened by accident. Every step was ordered for you to be here, right? This is it for you, So it really came full circle to me as well.
I'm a member of Liberty Baptist Church in Chicago since post-pandemic, since 2021. And the word this past Sunday was about how God's will always trumps human decree. It doesn't mean human decree is not necessary, and it doesn't mean human decree is not enforced, because in most cases it's necessary and it's enforced. But it doesn't trump whatever your God-given destiny. And like you said, you can look back on your whole path from being a barber to not getting initially into OBGYN in residency, but doing general surgery, and that actually prepping you in a way that made you uniquely suited to what you do today. And so you really are living evidence of that. If it's ordained for you, if it's willed for you, the path you take almost doesn't matter. It matters, but it matters in ways that you don't necessarily understand until you get to where you were meant to be. And then everything you went through is like, oh no, that all totally made sense in hindsight. Which is why you got to trust your instincts. And it's interesting. I'm hearing a pattern. Once a seed is planted in you, for you, no is, oh, I need to go cultivate this seed. It's not, no, I
So
need to leave this seed in the ground and walk away from it. And that kind of perseverance it's common among achievers. I would say that, and I'm noting the title of the book that you co-authored with the other two doctors, "The Pulse of Perseverance," and perseverance in my own personal story. I'm big in mentorship, so I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals, and I'm always telling them, listen, your ability to persevere, your ability to outlast, your ability to push through is almost more important than most any other skill you can have. I just know so many talented people who never get there because they just stop. They stop when it gets hard. It's usually hard in the beginning because nobody starts out great at what they do. I'm like, if you're not prepared to suck in the beginning, you're not prepared to excel,
yeah,
because you almost always,
yeah.
you talk about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was not considered a top-notch
Mhm.
basketball player in high school or college. It's his
And that's
perseverance,
and that yeah.
stubbornness, you know.
Yeah, that's how college was. As I came into Xavier University, Louisiana, man, I didn't know what a periodic table was. Like I'm a product of the Chicago school system, high schools. I was not prepared to go into what I thought was my destiny. I was ill prepared to do a pre med curriculum at all. And, they had kids in there. That Xavier is the mecca or the breeding place for black doctors. That's what they do. And that's why I went there. And so when I'm sitting in this classroom of 600 kids, all with desires of being doctors, I am in the lower pool of those kids because these kids had AP chemistry, AP biology, what I had none of that. I didn't have any chemistry class. I never was, exposed to physics in high school. I didn't have any of this stuff. So when if you're betting on these kids, you're betting against me. You're betting like there's so many kids that are more talented than me. And when the smoke and the dust cleared, only 10% of us actually were, at the end of 4 years in a position to actually be in professional school. And I'm in that 10%, so it has a lot to do with your desire, with your ability to persevere. And to the point of the seed, if you don't have the seed, it can't be cultivated. And that to the point of Pulse of Perseverance and why we wrote it, it's like so many of our kids, they don't have that seed. The only seed they have is what they see on TV. And it's, we don't have any more Cosby shows. We don't have any more of that. All they see is professional sports, athletes, entertainers, rappers, or what have you. And that's their that's their vision of success. And, less than 1% of them are going to actually make it to those realms. And, what happens to other 99 cents that don't know that someone like us exists, that don't know, that you can be a too as well. If this is what you're passionate about, that you don't see that element of success, so those seeds aren't planted. That's what we're trying to do, is like plant those seeds so they can grow.
Yeah, and the other thing you talk about, and I'm very familiar with Xavier University's legacy as an institution of creating Black doctors. But the other disadvantage I'm sure you experienced as an undergrad was that you were probably sitting in a classroom with young people who were second and third generation doctors in their family. Like they grew
Absolutely.
up with the legacy of understanding what this profession called for. And I say for people of, I'll speak to my background as, I don't want to make too many assumptions about yours, but I was raised in a working poor household in a working class community. So
Hmm.
my mother already knew that just me going off to college was like sending me to a foreign country, much less me going to work in New York and be a media executive. Like you don't have other than the love and support of your family wanting you to do well, maybe, you don't have this legacy of, yes, your uncle's a doctor, your mama was a medical professional. You're coming in, like you said, not only are you not prepared by the formal education that you had in the school system, you don't have this legacy to draw from. You're literally in a foreign country trying to learn a new language. And like you said, only 10% make it.
Right. And it's not even to that point, like, similar to yourself, nobody even went to college, in my family, let alone graduated. It's I navigated those waters, just not alone, because it takes a village, but the day to day struggle and trying to figure out what's my next step or whatever. I didn't have that. I leaned on my brothers that wrote the book with me, and they, my best friend, Maxim Adair, like, his dad was a professor at Howard, like his brother was a Xavier. So I was like, you know, hearing a lot of the things that they would tell him, and then I'm like, okay, that I'm getting secondary runoff, tutelage from it, that I use, and I needed every bit of tutelage that I could get, every bit of mentorship, just bits and pieces from any place that I can get it from. And it's difficult. It's difficult being a trailblazer. It's difficult, being the first to do anything, man. But that's the reason why, because there's so many of us that are in that space, man, and it is not meant for us. You know, for me as a kid from the south side of Chicago to get to here right now from where I started from, it is not meant for me to be in this position. But we're trying to make that easier for kids that look like us, to get here.
And speaking to that again, often, and you're an example of this, the guests I end up interviewing, I knew them on social before I knew them in person. So again,
Uh-huh.
I've been blessed to have been a plus one at your great birthday parties a couple of times, and but before I was like, oh wait, that's Dr. Pierre. Then I was like, wait, you
Yeah.
mean that's Dr. Pierre? I know Dr.
Yeah.
Pierre, and it's because of of what I think is great work that you do in terms of educating people in general. I mean, obviously, you're educating women who are struggling with and trying to decide what if surgery is the solution and what is that process like. And you do a great job um, of not just telling what you do, but literally showing what you do. Literally, I mean, you protect patients' privacy. Obviously we don't, but
Yeah.
if anybody just wants to know, and so much of our distrust, and I'm speaking of Black people, distrust of the medical profession, is not just the fact that we were treated like animals for so many, decades because we were seen as guinea pigs, as you said, but also there's almost like this mystery behind what's happening behind the curtain, and
Absolutely.
doctors having this reputation for trying to have this kind of godlike power, and you don't need to know, you just need to do what I tell you to do. And you are
Absolutely.
really breaking that wall of, listen, let me show you, let me help you to understand what's going on. And as a result, which speaks to why I invited you to be on the show, I care about fibroid health. I care. Now I got family members, one of my daughters. I I cared on some level, but I'm just fascinated with how you use social media, Instagram in particular, to educate all of us about
Yep.
fibroids, what they are, how it impacts lives, and what you do, what makes you the fibroid slayer. So let me go back.
Yeah.
What was your start of your journey of deciding that this work that you do needed to be showcased the way you showcase it?
So, I really broke down the true essence and the problems of why the disparities in healthcare really still exist today. Like, why is it that we have all of these technological advancements, but yet and still we're still the ones that get the brunt of everything? And it roots in education, right? When if you don't know, they can do anything they want to you, right? If you don't know better, you can't demand better. So I said that I was going to make a personal crusade to educate as many of us as possible. Because if you go to the doctor and you don't trust the doctor, uh, but you don't really know what they're talking about and don't know what to trust and what not to trust, then you kind of go with things as opposed to knowing what's happening to your body, understanding what questions to ask, understanding when they say this means that, or what have you. Like, to have that base knowledge when you go into or not only looking for healthcare, but actually going there and actually picking your doctor, what you need to know, right? So it starts with education. And then from that standpoint, it comes from exposure, right? So, all of these things that happen to us, they happened in silos. They happened to where it's like, okay, it happened. There's not a lot of information. Grandma had this surgery. We don't know what type of surgery. We know she was, chronically ill for a long period of time. We're never doing that surgery. We're never going to this hospital. We're never doing that because we don't know a lot about it, but we just know it was bad. Well, let me show you how things are done from step 1 to step 10, and let you ask questions so that we can now start to break some of the unknowns and the ignorances about what's happening, right? So now really exposing what's happening so that you have another badge of armor as it pertains to your health. And then from that standpoint is not allowing people to, do things and not be accountable for them, right? So I am a firm believer that whatever you do in this world, whatever your mission is, whatever it is you're passionate about, it should be reflected in everything that you do. Right. I'm passionate about women's health. So when you go to my page or when you go to social media, or when you really start digging deep, what do you see? You see me being passionate about women's health. It's not about me going to, foreign countries or going somewhere or whatever. Yeah, you'll see a little bit of that in there, but for the most part, I'm passionate about what I do from 9 to 5 when I'm there. And then when I'm not even there, when on my personal time, I'm still passionate about it. So when you're choosing a physician or when you're choosing a surgeon, even more importantly, you should choose someone that's really, really passionate about it, and not only passionate about what they do, but passionate about you as a person or an individual. So that's what I want to really just package and give to people and say, hey, I can't operate on all women. I can do as many as I possibly can, but here are the tools that you need when you're going to look for a doctor, and the check boxes that you need to actually choose the right person that's going to do the right thing for you. Because, social media is a very, very powerful tool, right? 50, 60 years ago, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they did not have this tool. They just had to go off word of mouth. We have this tool, utilize it, right? Because if you're going to research a doctor, why not go look at their social media pages and their presence, right? Why not go look and see and do some real research? Why not go and look and see all of the Black patients that they have really taken care of if they don't look like you, and see what their testimonials are and what their experiences are, and actually talk to those people. I use my platform as a soundboard for women that have actually had the surgeries to, don't just listen to me, listen to women that have actually done it and talk about their processes or what have you, to make you feel more comfortable about it. That's how medicine is supposed to be. That's how healthcare will be equitable for us all. How we eradicate the disparities when we just stop putting the blinders on what we're doing as healthcare professionals and start opening it up so now people can feel more comfortable, especially people that have been marginalized and have gone through such bad things for centuries for in healthcare in this country.
I received for Black Enterprise one of our newer content and event platforms called Health, BE Health is Wealth. And I definitely got to get, next time we do an event, I definitely got to get you on there, because you're everything you're saying is about why we're doing what we're doing. One, we make a direct connection between health and wellness and your capacity to earn. We're saying it's also a business and professional economic issue. If you're sick and or prematurely dead, it's kind of hard to build wealth and make money. And that goes directly to the health disparity, and equity. I'm very passionate personally. I'm 15 years since I was a prostate cancer patient. Everything you said about choosing the right surgeon was what I experienced. The surgeon who did my surgery is passionate about it. Like, he's like, I promise you, I'm accountable. The way I'm not just responsible for you having a successful surgery, I'm responsible for what kind of life you live after your. I mean, he was, all about it. He wasn't Black. He's not Black, but beyond that, the specialist that referred him, he said to me, when he said, okay, it's time for you to pick a surgeon. I got one. Both of them are good, but one knows he's good. I was like, give me that guy who knows he's good, because he's passionate. It's not that he's good because he's egotistical. He's good because he's passionate about the work and he's proud of what he's doing for his patients. And give him, again, he's not Black, but his name is Dr. David Samadi. And to this day, if I call him today to ask him a question about a surgery that was 15 years ago, he doesn't, at least not with me. He hasn't had somebody call me back. He will call me back. He just did the surgery last week, and it's been now 15 years. So I totally get that. But the other thing that I wanted to really underscore about this whole idea of, we can no longer accept that healthcare is something that we don't have a right to even ask questions. We don't have a right to research and investigate. We don't have a right to, that education thing is the biggest difference between who gets better health outcomes and who doesn't. And so again, when I think we did at our last Health is Wealth event we did in Atlanta earlier this year, and one of the major subjects was dealing with the issue of Black maternal mortality. And we had Tanya Lewis Lee, who maybe people know as the wife of Spike Lee, but whose passion around dealing with the fact that Black women die in childbirth way more than everybody else. And despite, like you said, the advancements in technology, it's not about that. It's about how Black women are treated in the system when they say something's not right. And so I can go down that road. But let me take that too, because we addressed the same question at this event, Health is Wealth in Atlanta, as I'm about to ask you, pretty directly. Just the way we know why Black men should care about Black maternal health, because you're talking about the mothers of your children, in many cases, in most cases. But why should Black men care about fibroid health? Again, it's a women's health issue, but it's not just a women's health issue, especially in the Black community.
Yeah, it's a everybody issue, right? So, Black women, as a Black man, I have a Black mother, I have a Black daughter. I have it's so much of my life revolves around Black women, and to not care about the things that really impact them is to not care about myself. So the way that we work as a community, as a society, is taking care of each other. We can't function without each other. So we have to, as well as they have to take care about our health and our livelihood as well. We make each other go. So when you are, how it impacts your home, right? As a father, right? Then you have mothers. If she is in, incredulous pain, if she is, cannot function to take care of your children, ask yourself, how does that impact your children? How does that impact you? And it has to impact you, if it impacts your children, now, in your household. So fibroids are very common. But for what I do and what I'm passionate about is, what's called advanced fibroid disease. And for Black women, there's a group of Black women that experience advanced fibroid disease that the world turns their back on. The world does not have the answers for them. The world does not really focus on their health, their needs, their wants, their desires, their ails, their pains. They don't focus on it. And their answers are very, very, they're very, very uh, emotional or empathetic to what their needs are. And that's what I focus on, because I see often so many of our women with advanced fibroid disease that are going through very, very brutal surgeries. And my focus is to change that. And it doesn't just change with the women that I can touch, but also changing that with healthcare professionals, and showing them that these women have voices. These women are mothers. These women are wives. Right? These women have the need to be able to restore their vitality so that they can be the pillars of their community that they are so needed to be. So yeah, it's so deep. It's so much that goes into it, and why I get so passionate. But for brothers that look at it like, oh, it's just a fibroid, it's just like I don't care about it or what have you. Like, yeah, you, it doesn't, it can't impact you directly, right? We don't have a uterus, right? So it doesn't impact us, but indirectly, it impacts our entire world, right? So you have to care about it.
Well, I tell
Yeah.
brothers, again, I'm speaking as a former prostate cancer patient, and we literally, I may send you the link. We just did a webinar on, because September was Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and we did a webinar where we talked about prostate cancer and the history, diversity in clinical trials, et cetera. That I moderated that conversation for Black Enterprise. But I was like, the same way women care, as they should, about
Yep.
Black men dealing with prostate cancer, because women don't have to deal with that. We need to care up for the same thing with fibroids. That even though it may be a gender specific condition, especially the advanced disease that you're talking about, it has a broad impact on the overall function of families, households, relationships. And back when I was really deeply ignorant about this, my first exposure to a person who was struggling with this, and this was maybe 20 years ago, when you know how bad it was when people, women were being told it's all in your head. Misdiagnosis was like crazy. They were getting treated for stuff that had nothing to do with it, and that was, of course, causing additional issues, health issues.
Yeah.
The doctors are
Still
telling them
are.
it's not real, it's not,
Yeah.
And I had a editor on my staff. This is when I was editor in chief of Black Enterprise magazine, named Monique Brown. She ended up writing a book about it. One of the first books about, fibroids in Black women. I can't remember, been maybe 10, 15 years. But I remember her, and she was a great performer, great at her job. Like, again, but she would struggle. She would be in pain. She might have to take sick days. And when she would try to explain within the limits of her own right to privacy what was going on and how often she was being told, it's just, just take some aspirin, and she was
Yeah.
almost being made to feel like she was crazy because this idea that discomfort was real. Again, we've come a long way since, the 1990s or the 2000s, but not that far, you know.
Not at
And,
all.
and, and you face
Well,
that with women every day who come to your, comment on your social media, or you meet in person, who are like, thank God for Dr. Pierre, because the rest of these people are trying to tell me it's all in my head.
or just have a hysterectomy. Just get a hysterectomy. You're
Yeah.
telling
Yes.
someone to sterilize themselves, and they've never had children. or sterilize themselves, and
Mm.
they have plans of creating a family, and not educating them on their options, not educating them on how they have to actually plan out their fertility. We don't we're not told the basics. We're not taught the basics of it. Fertility is a very, very intricate process. And, our thought process as a people overall is that, yeah, it just happens. When we want it to happen, it just happens. That's not true.
Right.
It's not true at all. It's a very, very, not only, it's not to use the same word, but intricacy is important, but it has to be planned, just like anything else in our lives. We plan for how to buy a car, our futures at work, and buying a house. Like we vacation, we plan every single thing of our life. When I consult with women, I'm like, "You plan to buy your car?" "Yes, I did. I did this, that, and that." I said, "You plan to what do you do for a living? How do you go through?" "Oh yeah, I went to this school. I did that. I did this or whatever." You plan all that stuff. Now you want to have a baby at 40 years old, and you're telling me, well, if God just blesses me with a man, and if this just happens and it just magically happens, it has to be a plan. It has to be a plan, and we don't know that. We don't know that, that the biggest element of fertility is the egg. Men can have men can have babies till Al Pacino just had a baby 82 years old, right? That's one aspect. It's a sperm. Then the actual house, which is the uterus. That's what I do. I fix the house. I make the house structurally intact to be able to put an embryo, put a baby in there so it can grow. That's fairly not easy, but it's something that can be done. Then there's the pathway. The pathway is the sperm has to meet the egg so that an embryo can form, right? You don't always have to have that pathway to do it naturally. You have to have that pathway, but if that pathway doesn't is blocked, whether the tubes are blocked, if the tubes are bad, then that doesn't necessarily prohibit you from having a baby. It just prohibits you from having it naturally. But then the most important aspect of it is the egg. There's a shelf life for it, right? And we always just say, hey, well, if she's 35, okay, well, it's going down. Or if it's 40, it's going down. I have women that are 43, 44 with eggs of a 33, 34-year-old woman. I have women that are 33, 34 with eggs of a 45-year-old woman. And you cannot just put it on, hey, it's just an age thing and I just have to have a baby by this time, what have you. That is just leaving it for chance. And that's where a lot of dreams get deferred as it pertains to planning your family and having children. So educating women on how important it is to align your steps to get what you want. I'm just a facilitator to help you get what you want, but you actually have to plan that out. So it's extremely important from an educational standpoint.
And you circle back to again why this is not just a women's issue. So when you talk about the desire to have children, again, I know personally marriages that are either under pressure because they want to have children but they can't, or
Mm-hmm.
that marriages have ended because even if the woman
Okay.
wasn't okay with not having children anymore, there are men who are like, no,
That's right.
I want to be a father. And
And that,
again, if
yeah,
you care about that, then fibroid issues are not just a woman's issue.
absolutely. I have couples that come in, black couples that come in all the time. The man is coming in here, he just looking at me sideways and looking like, what's the problem? Why she can't get pregnant? Why, it's just a pure ignorance about it. And it's really an educational standpoint. It's like you got, hey, we're late 30s, early 40s. Like it's just not a put. We have to figure out the problem. We have to create a plan. We have to put money aside. Like if we can't do this thing naturally, that we have to go through an in vitro fertilization route, having these steps planned out to get what you want. And if fibroids are an issue, yes, we have to deal with those, but you also have to look at the other elements that make up what you guys are trying to do as far as, fertility is concerned.
Again, what I love about what you're doing, particularly on social media, is that the education part doesn't have to start when you're 35. That I think there's younger and younger women and younger people, men too. Again, I learned about you from Instagram before I ever knew you personally. That the earlier Black people, and I'm talking about male and female, could learn about all of these health issues and prepare, like you said. I didn't find out until a couple of months before my diagnosis that both my father and my grandfather were prostate cancer survivors. I didn't even know that because I didn't know my family history. But my son has a bigger head start than
Yeah.
I did, and I have a grandson who's now 3. He'll have a way bigger head start than his father or I did because the education process now is not, oh, I learned about it when I was, 20 because my father had it when he was 45. Now, no, I understand. My son knows since he was 19, there's a family history and I need to be prepared. And what I think is important about what you do, particularly on social, I know it's not limited to social, is that now you got a couple of generations of younger women who are on social, obviously, who are like,
Yeah.
I may be only 20, but I do want to have children someday, and I need to be paying attention to my, potential for
These things.
fibroids and anticipate what my
Absolutely.
options are versus somebody who might be in their 40s now and is like, oh man, I didn't even think about this until now when I'm realizing I can't have children. Or I'm dealing with this chronic pain. So I praise you and again, I'm an admirer of you and a fan of yours even before I met you because you're using social media in a way that really is the best use of social media to educate people you may never meet so they can have the head start that their mothers or their grandmothers didn't have or couldn't have, as you said.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. And that's what it is. If we all did that, we would be better as a community and society. So that's what I urge. If anybody sees, like, just take a page of it, and just utilize it. Like, utilize, social media is a great thing. We scroll down, kind of get sidetracked with a lot of nonsense, but the true content that elevates us, that enlightens us, that educates us, that that's the true benefit of social media, and we just need to pour more into that thing.
Listen, man, as we come down the home stretch, guys, you got to know he is Dr. Pierre. He is a surgeon. His time is extremely valuable. So that's why we got him. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. Like you said, we could talk about 3 or 4 topics for hours that you brought up.
Oh, absolutely.
I might have to have you
Yeah, we
back
got to
on.
we got to do it again, man. We got
Yeah,
to do
no
it again
doubt,
for
no
sure.
doubt. But listen, just so that people continue, those who are following you or those who should be following you, what's the best way to, your website, your socials, for people to continue to follow you and your work, to be educated by the things that you're doing? Again, not just women, but even us brothers who really need to be deeply, um, have a deeper understanding and education for our wives, for our daughters, for our mothers, for our sisters, our aunts, and others in our family that we care about.
Awesome, for sure. So, first and foremost, thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I enjoy having these conversations that are going to elevate and uplift us. To follow me, the social media. So TikTok, Instagram, Dr. P23. So spell out Dr. DOCTOR P23. That has been my name since that was my original email address as going from high school. So Dr. P23 from Hotmail to Yahoo to Gmail. So Dr. P23, I kept it. I never changed it. So that if anybody wonder where it came from, that's been my entire life pretty much. Dr. P23. Facebook, for my Facebook users, is Pierre Johnson, MD. And the website is www.fibroidslayer.com. And that's, it's very, innovative. I put out blogs for women's health, to educate us as well. And there will be a Fibroid Slayer community that is coming out this month, actually, that has all of my, prior patients and a women's healthcare forum to allow women to have a soundboard to not only learn, but also to give testimonials, experiences. It's going to be extremely interactive. I want to come on there and talk or what have you, to educate as well too. It's going to be awesome. Please check that out. And then my other part of my life is the Pulse of Perseverance. It's 3 Black doctors on our journey to success. And what we're doing is revolutionizing mentorship. We just released a mentorship app, which is the first and only mentor application of its kind, a mobile application of its kind. They have some that are on the web, but this is one you can go to your, Apple, Google store, download. And now we are showing young kids that look like us, mentors in spaces that they didn't even know exist, pilots, engineers, lawyers, anything that you can think of, uh, for not only for them to be exposed to it and plant the seed that I talked about earlier, but also to have now mentorship that they so desperately need. So the book is called Pulse of Perseverance. That's on Amazon and most major platforms that sell books. And the website is www.pulseof3.org. But yeah,
And the app,
that's
what's the
all
name
the
of the
ways.
app? What's the name of the app?
It's called the Pulse of Perseverance Mentorship app.
I gotta get you.
And
Listen,
it's like I said,
you're all in my Kool-Aid, man. I'm so into mentorship. I just finished my third
yeah.
year as a mentor for Pharrell Williams Black Ambition Prize program. I got an
Dope.
army of mentees all across. I mean,
That's
yeah. So
super
I'm going
dope,
to get
man.
that. I'm
So
definitely
training.
getting that app, and I'm definitely going to be sharing it with my little army of mentees and mentors. So that's the thing
Please
I'm
do.
most passionate about. I'm really again. We
That's
can do
what
a whole
that's
nother
what I
show
am
on this
too.
platform.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
absolutely, bro. I'm so passionate about that. It's I'm as passionate I am as about fibroids and women's health. I'm just as equally as passionate about mentorship and then changing the narrative for us as people. So that's my other hat that I
Well,
wear.
if
You
you're
know,
like me, I know why you're passionate about it. I'm always like, people look
absolutely
at what I've been able to do and where I come from, and I'm always like, I know 30 other brothers from my age group who could do the same thing if they had just like, we can't just
just had the
leave it
way.
to chance, like you said about planning. We can't just hope one of us
Yeah,
gets through and be like, oh my God, that's great. I'm like, my thing when I started
yeah,
mentoring, and I literally started mentoring right out of college, I was like, how can we make Dr. Pierre and Alfred Edmond happen on purpose? Like, how can we just
yeah.
not leave it to chance?
Absolutely.
You know, how can we?
How can they not just be the only ones and be a slew of them? You know, just
Right,
like just that
right,
them in abundance for these kids. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I tell people
I'm
mentoring
there.
is about reverse engineering our success so we can duplicate it. If you're not duplicating it,
Facts.
yeah, like I said, we're about to get started. I don't want to get started. We'll be here
Yeah, I'm
another
about to
hour.
say. Yeah,
Listen, bro,
what's
I really appreciate
what's the point of going through it and not paving that pathway so other people could walk through it, man?
absolutely.
No, nobody knew you walked down that pathway. What was the point of it? You know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I tell people,
Let me stop.
like, first black is only history if you're not the last black. You know,
Facts.
it's not
Big facts.
historic
Yes.
unless somebody. But if it's like you're a footnote, if once upon a time there was a guy named Dr. Pierre Johnson
Yeah.
back in the day,
Yeah.
but nobody says no. Your impact
Yeah.
is when people can say, "Yep." There's now 1,000 people who can say, "Yep." I learned about Dr. Johnson, and that's what made me. Just like
Absolutely.
you watch the TV show, and you know. So anyway, like I said, we can go on forever. Listen, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to be my
For
guest
having me.
on this edition of Beyond the Hype.
Man, thank you for having me, man. Anytime we got to do it again, brother. This was awesome. I appreciate you.
No doubt. And I look forward to connecting with you next time I'm back in Chicago.
Absolutely. Please do. Got to, man. I'm gonna count it against you if you don't, man. Let
Oh,
me know when you're here.
I know. Chicagoans don't play. They really do count. Thank you, my
Absolutely,
friend.
man. Yeah, come on, man.
Coming through.
Let me find out you done snuck in here and don't holler at me.
Ah, I hear you. I hear you. Listen, everybody, thank you for joining us for another great edition of Beyond the Hype. Listen, I say this every show, but this is one you not only want to watch, you want to share. It will bless and help and heal so many people who need this message. And, Dr. Pierre Johnson, like everybody on the show, is the real deal. So listen, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the next edition of Beyond the Hype.